I want to quickly just tell you about my story of how I got out of a doom scrolling rut recently and how you can do it as well if you find yourself just addicted to content consumption and social media and the virtual world in general. So, I'm a person that takes their mental health quite seriously, and I always take caution and try to stay as mentally healthy as possible. I'm completely aware of how many millions and billions of dollars these companies invest into just hooking our attention to their apps. Yet I still found myself in a doom scrolling rut recently. Probably because I started posting this type of content on Instagram as well, and I was, checking stats, and I just ended up scrolling more on my like main private account as well as a byproduct of creating a new account and posting these reels there. Long story short, from spending like 10 minutes a day on Instagram, I went to spending 1 hour per day on Instagram, and this really reflected in my behavior overall because I started being a lot less present and a lot less happy, I would say. As I realized that, I started obviously like doing some introspection, asking myself like, why do I feel like this? Why did like, sort of like the passion go away from my life, from just the normal moments? And I figured that it's probably because of this, because I'm consuming a lot of content. And what I've learned through the past few years of just trying to keep my mental health as high as possible is that your brain doesn't want you to become more mentally healthy because it's hooked. And then two, you're not even aware of the actions that you're doing. So for example, what you would realize if you were to just change the location, like on your phone's screen, home screen, if you were to change the location of your Instagram, TikTok, YouTube app, you would just realize that you keep pressing on that same spot that's now empty or it contains another app. You keep pressing there instinctively because you're not even aware of the things you're doing. So they've gotten into our heads quite deeply, and we are hooked, we are brainwashed already. And in that scenario, the only thing we can do is to take brutal action and to take advantage of technology at the end of the day. Technology is the thing that can be our greatest ally and our greatest enemy as well, depending on how we decide to use it. Thankfully, on iPhones at least, you have this feature where you can limit your app usage. So, as soon as I realized that content consumption is my issue here, I decided to just set my app limit to 0 minutes per day. For Instagram, for YouTube, Facebook, all of these apps. I don't even have TikTok, thankfully, because that would have been another struggle. And what I did for myself and how I think the best way to do it is to set it to 0 minutes per day because that prevents you from going on your apps as soon as you wake up and just spending that time early on in the morning. And the momentum you gain early on in the morning is gonna reflect in the rest of your day as well. So, for example, if you scroll on the first hour of the day, you will end up scrolling more in the following 23 hours of the day. And if you don't scroll in the first hour of the day, it's gonna be way easier to not scroll in the rest of the day as well. So what I did is I just tried to prioritize the way I start the day. And the rule I kind of set to myself in my mind was that I am going to set this like app limit to 0 minutes per day that can obviously be ignored and bypassed by a simple click. But that extra layer, that extra step of having to click another button in order to access the app gives you a bit of time to just think about what you're doing instead of just mindlessly ending up on Instagram time and time again. And what I did is I just set a rule with myself that I'm not gonna go on these apps from the moment I wake up and until 1 p.m. That's exactly what I did. So I didn't have any specific rules on my phone for this. I just had an intention in my mind that until 1 p.m. I'm not gonna touch these apps, and after 1 p.m. I can do whatever the hell I want. And that's exactly what I did. But guess what? After you spend like your first 5, 6 hours not being on these apps and just befriending yourself more and living more in the real world, it's a lot easier and you will want to spend more time with yourself and in the real world than before. And yeah, indeed, you might still go back into a doom scrolling sprint for 1 hour or even several hours after 1 p.m., but that's fine because you've freed the first few hours of the day. And Now, for the next days, what I did and what you should do is to iterate and to increase the number of hours you spend without these social media apps. So, okay, the first day was just until 1 p.m. The second day is gonna be 3 p.m., third day 5 p.m., sixth day 7 p.m. And I really think that if you manage to not be on social media from the moment you wake up until 7 p.m., you can do whatever you want after 7 p.m. because the day is almost over anyway. And that's quite an easy way to get out of a doom scrolling rut like the one I've been to recently and to kind of take control over your life again, because at the end of the day, we need control of our lives because these companies are just trying to steal it from us all the time. And it's our responsibility to not fall into their traps. Now, I've tried several different tactics that I've heard from, online influencers and books and productivity stuff and whatnot. But I really find that when it comes to content consumption, the best way and the only way that works is to take brutal and very strict and severe action instantly. So then if you want to lower the amount of time you spend on these apps, just take the action right now. Now you could do one of two things, one of two approaches. The first one would be to take the action right now. So set your app limits for the social media short form content apps to 0 minutes, zero limits. What they're talking about, 0 minutes per day, and that's gonna prevent you from accessing these apps right now, like for the rest of the day. But that might be a bit hard because perhaps you've been consuming content on them for the past few hours or something like that, and you're gonna find a lot of resistance and friction to doing it. Case in which the second approach would be to take some action as well, to set an alarm for later on today, and right before you go to bed, for example, just take the action then to set these app limits to 0 minutes per day, so that tomorrow when you wake up, you will see that model popping up with the three choices of delaying it, of not entering the app, and whatever it says there. And that's the extra step that's gonna stop your brain and make you realize that you're just doing a mindless action that's gonna lead to you just staying in the rut and making no progress. It's quite normal to struggle with this, to take some action and to be more disciplined for a while, then to fall back into the rut, then to go back to discipline and just go back and forth and back and forth. But eventually, normality can become a universe, a world in which you don't spend so much time consuming content. Because that's the usual for me. But as I said, I still fall into these ruts from time to time, but I know how to get out of them whenever I need. And now you know as well, you are equipped with everything you need to get out of such ruts and to start taking control of your life.